All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a couple of real people out there, just like you and just like me. If you can help, watch the videos, folks. I always say this when the algorithm is just doing its own thing, it's going off somewhere else. The last couple of weeks, I've 76,000. I always say this, and we've got 1,300 views on a video, which in the old days I would have been like, yeah, man, 1,300 views. Um, I look at other channels and what they're doing and how many subscribers they have, and it's about 10 times what I'm doing on each video in most cases. So again, you're talking what, one or two out of every 77 people are watching. So it's just, I don't know, folks. So Patreon, by the way, Patreon is great. We've had increases on Patreon. We've got Buy Me a Coffee. We've got YouTube members. That makes up for some of it. But again, I get discouraged because it's like looking at your portfolio for your stocks in the morning, and you're like, wow, it's down again after that great video I did yesterday where I ranted and raved and had a great time, and people sent me messages saying how they loved it, but then nobody watched it. So when I say nobody, by the way, it's not zero, but compared to, I need about 5,000 to 10,000 views on each video. That's what I really need. So that would be great. And that's really not asking for that many views based on how many subscribers I have. All right. So complaining session over. I want to showcase this because I'm into nostalgia. And when a band sounds exactly the way they did 40 years ago, I'm going to talk about it. Sawyer Brown, this may not be your thing. My buddy Jim sent me a link to the first single off of this, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, it's time travel. These guys made a 90s country album, and they're just fantastic. By the way, the weird story about Sawyer Brown is I believe they were discovered on Star Search. Remember that show with Ed McMahon? I never watched it. I may have watched it a couple of times, but Sawyer Brown was discovered. That was kind of like, what's America's Got Talent or something like that. But they are so good. They sound exactly the way they used to. So check out their new album. It's called Desperado Troubadours. Now, some rock and roll troubadours, Foreigner, who are always kind of fighting about stuff. I mean, I don't know. Mick Jones, he's not really in the band anymore. He's probably doing some things on the sidelines. And Lou Gramm is out there saying that he hasn't spoken to Mick Jones. And I think people are curious as to why there isn't a relationship there. And I don't want to just constantly bash on Lou Gramm because I think he's probably one of the best, if not the best, depending on who you talk to, right? Singers, Lou Gramm, all right? And I've said this over and over again. Lou, by the way, can say all the crazy stuff he wants to say because he's earned the right to say it. But Rick Wills, who was in Foreigner, ends up kind of debunking this narrative that Lou had something to do with I Want to Know What Love Is. Now, of course, he sang the song, so maybe based on his vocal performance, he ought to get something. But if you're talking about songwriting, it appears that this was Mick's song, Mick Jones. This is what Rick Wills in a recent podcast had to say. He says, well, in the case of I Want to Know What Love Is, that was Mick's song. I mean, it really is, to be perfectly honest. At the time, Lou was getting a bit peeved over all of the ballads. There's too many ballads. It's too soft. It's all keyboard oriented. I want more guitar stuff. I want it to be guitar based and more rocky. And Mick was just going down that road at the time. He wrote so much stuff on guitar that once he discovered what he could do on a keyboard, and you'll notice if you know the music, it's mostly in sharps and flats because he writes everything on the black notes on a keyboard, but that's just the way he does it. And so that's the explanation. Rick goes on to talk about how Mick and Lou worked together in a very good way. Mick usually had the musical idea for the song, whereas Lou often had the lyric idea more so than Mick. But he says, as far as I remember, and I think I'm right in saying, Mick had the whole thing in his head. He's talking about, I Want to Know What Love Is. It was something he came up with. He knew what he had, and he just wanted it to get across. The way it came across was right. I mean, it wasn't just done in a heartbeat. It took some time to get it right. Mick's very particular about how things are layered, how things are done. And sometimes that can be a bit laborious, but nevertheless, it worked. Less than 2 years ago, Gramm discussed the supposed lack of contribution to the song during an interview, speaking about his involvement with this song and other Foreigner songs like Waiting for a Girl Like You. He said, I did help co-write them, although I didn't get any credit for I Want to Know What Love Is. Well, take it up with Rick Wills. He says, I did help co-write them. So he says here, I've always loved writing melodies and lyrics. I liked working on arrangements. Now, what's interesting here is, you know how bands have these narratives that they put out, like Styx with Dennis DeYoung, Dennis ruined the band, too many ballads. Okay. Lou is getting fed up with the ballads. And that used to be the narrative. That was the narrative as to why Foreigner broke up in the first place. And then Foreigner made a pretty rock and roll album after that called Unusual Heat, right? And then when they got back together with Lou, they made an adult contemporary album called Mr. Moonlight. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of any of this stuff. All I know is that I Want to Know What Love Is was a super successful tune. Robert Plant at the time said, hey, Mick, if you've got another one of these, I would like to use it, right? I would like to sing it. Imagine Robert Plant singing one of Mick Jones's ballads. That would have been pretty amazing. But the bottom line here is the narrative was, you guys are getting too wimpy. I want to rock out. Now, years later, well, that's kind of over with because we know that the fans love these songs. Styx, they love these songs, right? And so you should just play them, play the rockers, play the ballads, play all of them. Why just, no, we're not going to do it. We're too manly. We've got too much testosterone. We've got to get it out. Okay, well, there's some young ladies and some middle-aged ladies now who would love to hear those ballads. And people over the years have been kind of stopped in their tracks when they've heard I Want to Know What Love Is. That is a great song. In fact, I'm less tired of that song than Don't Stop Believin', because there's so much going on with the arrangement. Rick Wills says here, he talks about the layering and getting this right. And then the choir, was it the New Jersey, I think it was New Jersey Mass Choir or something like that on this song. Just those little hairs in the back of your neck. I mean, that song too, when it was out, it's still big. When you turn on the radio, you're going to hear it all the time. But when that thing came out, that hit the world like a ton of bricks, like #1 in every country. So yeah, I'd want a cut of that too, Lou Gramm. I get where you're coming from. You should have took the 5%. Another classic car in the garage with that 5%, maybe 3 or 4 of them. So anyway, Rick Wills essentially debunking Lou Gramm here. And yeah, in a perfect world, maybe Mick would have said, you know what, Lou, I know you didn't write this song. I had the whole thing, right? You didn't write it, but your vocal performance, you're the only guy who could sing this song. So yeah, I'm going to cut you maybe 20%. And that, I think, would have been fair. That would have been very fair, based on the testimony here of Rick Wills, who played bass on the song and, by the way, does a great job. So anyway, folks, that's my thrilling video on the slow news day. This just makes me smile. Sawyer Brown, Desperado Troubadours. It's back. It's bad. It's nationwide. Go get yourself a copy of the CD. Just freak your friends out. If there's a cassette of this available, buy the cassette. Well, I don't have a cassette player anymore. Well, you're going to stream it anyway, right? You're going to go stream it so you can hold up the cassette and say, look what I got. It's a collectible, right? It's a Pokemon card. I don't know. Just enjoy having a physical possession because it's better than what they're telling you to do, that you'll own nothing and be happy. No, I've got, as you can see behind me, and I've seen guys on YouTube with like cabinets and just a wall filled, like a warehouse of CDs, right? I don't have a warehouse yet. I'm working on it though. All right. So if you see more CDs in the years being, as far as my background here, at some point, I think I want it to be just a solid wall of CDs, because, hey, CDs are cool. All right. And I will put a link, hopefully, in the video here so you can purchase a copy of this new Sawyer Brown album. My name is Dave. Again, please, if you can help me out, the algorithm, it's not my friend. And this is a very innocuous video for the most part, a couple of digs here and there at the establishment, but, more cutting edge commentary coming soon. So stay tuned and God bless everybody. And I'll see you then.